Welcome to the Nurse Mark Podcast, where we talk about everything health, happiness, cannabis. We'll delve into all aspects of what it means to live a powerful, healthy life. Everything from exercise to nutrition to mindfulness, and how to use cannabis as a means to alleviate some of the most common health issues we face. My motivation and passion come from the fact that I personally had to explore all these areas to deal with lifelong depression and mood disorder. For me, it's personal. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of the Nurse Mark Podcast. This week I have as my guest Taylor Hayes. Taylor is a psychiatric registered nurse, holistic health coach, Reiki practitioner, yoga and Brazilian jiu-jitsu instructor, medical cannabis educator, and mental health nurse practitioner, nursing education graduate student. She's the founder of the International Association of Psychedelic Nursing and the Hope Network Health. She's a member of the American Cannabis Nurses Association and American Holistic Nurses Association. She lives in Dadeville, Alabama, and man, she is something else. We're going to have a great conversation about psychedelics and about their role in healthcare. You're going to love this one. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. All right, folks, welcome to the Nurse Mark Podcast. And my guest this week, Taylor Hayes. Hey, Taylor.
Hello, thank you very much for having me on.
Oh, I'm so glad we could have this conversation, and it's really timely. We're going to talk about psychedelics and your background and how you got where you're at in all of what's going on in your world around psychedelics, because it's a huge topic these days, right? So
absolutely.
Let's talk about psychedelics. You're the founder of the International Association of Psychedelic Nursing, which is super cool, and I love it. How did this all come about? Like, were you born into a psychedelic family, or?
Oh goodness, no. So my personal background is I'm actually from Alabama, in a very, very rural part of Alabama. So just think of farming and think of a town with, one stoplight, and we didn't even have a Walmart until I was in high school. So
oh my God,
the kind of place that I came from
right there.
Yes, which is not where you would think, psychedelic activity is going on.
Mm-hmm.
And, I had never heard of psychedelics before until I went to college. But I had experienced depression throughout my teenage years.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to, seek therapy. And when I went to university, I had no direction. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was very depressed and had thoughts, of harming myself or of death. And then when I was out, being a hooligan, being an irresponsible college kid, someone handed me a mushroom. And I didn't know what it was. I had no idea, but I ate it and it completely changed my life. It gave me a purpose, and it gave me, a reason, I guess, to continue living. I started caring about my life and my relationships more. And it gave me, a reason to care about myself, a reason to care about other people. So I decided to start nursing school and go to nursing school. And since then, I've worked as a psychiatric nurse inpatient, and then I continue my education, and I'm about to graduate from nurse practitioner school. And I've continued my psychedelic education as well. So I actually began, seeking out, I decided that the experience I had in college was incredibly unsafe, but I wanted to learn more about these substances, how they worked, what is the history behind these substances, because it was so overwhelmingly positive and incredibly, life-saving for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to know, surely other people know about this. So I found other cultures that have used these as medicine, and I went and traveled around the world to go visit these places and visit other people who have used these medicines, and I wanted to hear their story, and that just continued to culminate until I founded the International Association of Psychedelic Nursing, and now it's just my whole purpose to find other nurses who are interested in this, and work with other cultures, and look into the research that's coming out. There's more and more research coming out, and promote the research and safe practices, legal practices, and And it's just really incredible how psychedelics have been used, especially in Central and South America, for hundreds and thousands of years in these cultures. So it's really, really cool because it's a sort of a new science in Western culture, but it's also a very old science.
Yeah, so it's very old traditions, shamanic traditions, and use of psychedelics many times in religious ceremonies, right?
Yes.
But it's always in sort of a consciousness, growth, expansion way of using them.
Yes.
The timing couldn't have been more perfect because it is just an explosive area of scientific research right now, right?
Absolutely. More and more people, more and more people are becoming interested, and more and more people are needing medicines that really work and are kind of these breakthrough medicines. We're at a point in our culture, I feel like we don't really have an option to shove these medicines in a corner anymore and put them off limits. It's really time to bring them out and apply them where we can to help people where we can.
Yeah, I think, we have that in common. I've had lifelong depression and mood disorders. So for me, I've tried every psychotropic medication that you can think of. And, the reality of the situation is they're just not that effective. For me, they're not effective at all. For most, they're not effective, right? So it's just a Band-Aid approach to try to do these things. And I haven't been on medication for 5 years now because I put together a program that works for me, and exercise, eating right, meditation is a huge component of how I regulate my mood and handle my depression. And also I've had some experience with psychedelics as well, and very positive ones, right? So it's this amazing time where, wow, we're looking at, and I think you're right. I think we're just looking at it and saying, what we have in place in Western medicine just isn't cutting it. It's not working. It's not really effective. What else is out there? Well, let's look back in time and look at as you said, thousands of years of experience of people working with these amazing things. So there are a lot of different psychedelics, right? Let's talk about some of sort of the different things that are out there. You traveled the world. What did you find? What did you find around the world? Different cultures using what?
So right now, I think, what we will have the fastest access to in the United States will be psilocybin and MDMA, because the most research has been put into these two substances. So MDMA is sort of a mild psychedelic, but it is also known as ecstasy, or, it's also a stimulant. So it's a synthetic molecule that has been created to treat PTSD, or has been shown helpful to improve PTSD. It's being studied in veterans. A lot of your followers are probably familiar with the MAP studies that have been ongoing for several years now with MDMA. And it's really promising. And what's fascinating to me is how the people who have gone through these research studies, they actually improve over time. So typically, once someone takes a psychedelic drug, you may see an increase, over the next 6 to 9 months or so. Their whole life will improve and continue improving. Whereas if you look at traditional Western medicines, we don't really see that very often. A continued increase in.
No, you reach a plateau, right? You take the medication and they look 2 weeks to 4 weeks out to see if there was a positive effect. But that's it. It's like a ceiling. That's what your effect will be. You're not going to get better over a period of time.
Right. And we don't see curative effects very often in Western psychiatry either. So, some of these studies are showing that these people don't qualify for PTSD anymore after, X amount of treatments, which is really fascinating. So it's considered a breakthrough therapy. It's really kind of blown the doors off of what we thought was possible as far as people recovering.
One of the things that was sort of I don't know if it was a curative or not, is I had TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation, 5 years ago. And that was sort of the spot where I was able to put all of the medications down. And so it's basically just an MRI magnet tuned down and very focused on a specific part of the brain where they believe the depression resides, right? sort of the synapses that aren't working. And so it just stimulates those on and off, on and off, on and off for, you know, a few weeks. And then you don't have to have the treatment anymore. For me, I don't know if that's what clicked it and made it so that I could use all these other tools effectively. But certainly it was something that's cutting edge and so that's where we are with psychedelics now. They're cutting edge. So, you know, getting back to what's out there, we have MDMA, we have psilocybin, but I belong to an entrepreneurs group that's a global group, and we have a WhatsApp group that is all just psychedelics. Now, these are top entrepreneurs in the world, right? And they are all into this sort of consciousness expansion in this healing modality of psychedelics. And it's wild. So again, we have MDMA and psilocybin that's available for us in the United States. What about some of the other stuff that's out there, like San Pedro and ayahuasca and these different things? And of course, you know, back when I was growing up, the big one was peyote. You know, that was the thing that people talked about a lot was, oh, okay, so these Native American folks, these shamans have used peyote as a psychedelic. Talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So I don't have any personal experience with peyote. I do have personal experience with Wachuma or San Pedro cactus, which contains mescaline. It's commonly used by indigenous healers in the Andes Mountains down in the Sacred Valley in the Peruvian region. It's also known as plant ecstasy. So it can be similar to MDMA, but it's a very natural form, and it's usually taken as a whole plant or as an extract from the plant. So that experience was very powerful for me. It was very positive and very mildly psychedelic. It's not a very visually psychedelic medicine, but it lasts a very long time, up to about 12 hours.
Wow.
So what's great about all the medicines we've discussed so far is that you don't have to have special diets or come off of certain foods or things. Whereas with ayahuasca, which is a mixture of two plants, it's a plant brew. So there's ayahuasca vine, and then you mix the ayahuasca vine with chacruna typically. So when you do this and you take it, you have to go on what's called a diet, just to make sure you don't have any salts or sugars, no red meats. So no tyramine or any foods that can cause disruption with your MAOIs. So it's you must come off your psychiatric medications and things typically as well, just to have a safe experience. And it's a very strong purgative. So all these other psychedelics are not a strong purgative, whereas ayahuasca is quite extreme. You can have extreme defecation and emesis with ayahuasca. So that is what keeps me from thinking, right now ayahuasca may not be. It's going to be more difficult to fit into our Western psychiatric model or our Western care model, because it's a little bit more dangerous. It's a little bit more difficult to anticipate the effects from one person to another.
Right.
However, but I did stay at a research center called Riosville Research Center in Peru for about 1 month, which studies ayahuasca, and different researchers from around the world come conduct research on ayahuasca there. And, there have been some amazing research with ayahuasca. Ayahuasca on the effect of narcissistic personality disorder and other personality disorders, which have no treatment currently.
No treatment. Let's talk about that, because those are serious. I've actually had people in my life that that suffer from these, and they're entrenched. There's just no effective treatment for it, and they suffer. They really do, and I really, my heart hurts for them, because there is no treatment. With me, with depression and mood disorder, and you with depression, there are things that are going to work. These things we're talking about now, for them, they don't. So there's some efficacy with ayahuasca in these particular personality disorders.
It's very new research, so I would say it's difficult to really confirm or say with certainty much of anything at this point, but there is reason to continue studying and reason to continue looking. You know, I hate to say that this is a cure for narcissistic personality disorder or anything like that.
We can't say anything cures anything, right? It's all just
right.
work to begin with. We're so complex, right?
I like to be very careful with how I speak about psychedelics because we're so young into this movement that, you know, I don't want to undermine the movement in any way.
Right. You don't want to say, oh, this is definitely something that works.
Right.
Someone in the scientific community and the healthcare community is going to say, you can't say that.
Exactly. Right. So, and, you know, I like to say within the limits or within the lines, you know, as much as possible. And I think there is so much potential to study and so many plants remain in the Amazon to study. Like it's one of the most biodiverse regions in the world, if not the most biodiverse region in the world. And so many medicines have come out of the forest. So there's no telling what remains to be gleaned from the forest.
So there are other, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, while I was there at Riosbo at the Ayahuasca Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization, I was with a group of approximately 10 of us. And I would say, you know, over the course of this month, I would say, I think everyone there benefited in some way, in some kind of personal way through going through these experiences. So I didn't see anyone get worse, you know, their condition or whatever they were seeking or struggling with or whatever reason they came. Everyone got better. A lot of psychedelic work tends to come down to intention. Do you want to get better? Do you want to work on changing patterns in your consciousness, changing your behavior patterns? Are you journaling? Why are you here? What are you seeking? You know, you can't force someone to take a medicine and expect them to get better. It's not really a forced kind of a treatment. It's something you feel drawn to. You want to improve yourself, and you can use plants to help you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, setting that intention. And any of the experiences that I've had, it was always very much in the beginning, setting that intention as to what was going to occur during that particular time. And I just, in the last 2 months, had a psilocybin experience, and I set the intention for healing. And I'm telling you, Taylor, and you know, because you've had the experience, I finished up so many things from the past in that 1 4-hour experience that it's hard to explain to somebody how that feels, right? It was just completion, utter completion. Yeah.
Yes. Many people who experience psychedelics, you know, they say they can't really put it into words, how the experience affected them. It's really something you have to experience for yourself, and to try to put it into words really kind of diminishes the experience because you can't really, there's no word that could describe it.
Right. Yeah. That's the limitation of language, right? It's very much a limited method of conveying an experience because you're right. There are just no words that can explain what happened during, and it was just a 4-hour period of time. You know, it was almost as if it was therapy in 20 years, all condensed into a 4-hour period of time.
Yes.
And I think I have other people that have said that many times. It's like, it was just a condensed therapeutic session where I was in therapy for 20 years, but it lasted 4 hours. So yeah.
I agree with that. I've had a similar experience in that way, and very grateful to, you know, have these experiences, especially when I was so young. So I felt like, you know, I didn't have to spend decades and decades wondering and looking and searching and trying every single medication under the sun. I've tried a couple of medicines.
I had to do that, right? So I had to do that. There was a period of time when I was in recovery where I tried the 12-step programs, and it was magnificent, and it worked, but it did not rid me of depression, which was why I did it in the first place. So now we have these new tools that are coming to the forefront that you're a groundbreaker, like you're a pioneer in this. And, you know, and I'm happy to be along as a sort of a pioneer in this space as well. And, you know, because we have personal experience, right? I think that's the most powerful way to connect people to to what is possible with this is that we have personal stories that we can say, hey, listen, I've been here. Like I've been at the edge where I was thinking, do I want to continue this journey or not? And now it's completely and utterly different. So let's talk about the stigma of mental health. You work in the mental health space.
Certainly.
You know, and I wrote a book about my experiences in the mental health space and how I've, you know, created this absolutely amazing life. Still is a stigma, right, attached to it. I don't buy into that anymore. I celebrate my depression. I celebrate my mood disorder, because if I didn't have those, if I wasn't wired in that way, I certainly wouldn't have gone down the path that I have that's led to this amazing life.
It kind of pushes you to become what you are, to become your high self, because you must overcome it, or else your only other choice is to succumb to it.
That's exactly right. It's either this or this. Which way do you want to go? It's so true. So I tell people all the time, celebrate the fact that you have this, you know, that you're impulsive, that you're emotional, that you have depression. I mean, celebrate it, because it's an opportunity to explore just what it is to be human and actually to overcome these things and to leverage them. My God, I leverage that is a powerful example in my life.
Yes, I think a lot of the stigma arises from a fear of, you know, from the general public, and a lack of understanding. So it's an ignorance and a fear, and that's what creates stigma. And so as we come into our own consciousness, as we explore, as we learn, those fears kind of subside, and we're able to live more from a loving heart and more compassion. And that helps us, you know, live towards more compassion, not only to ourselves, but to other people. And so that is what helped me break the stigma, at least of mental health. And and I've been around probably just about every single type of psychiatric patient. And you know, you just have to find a way to love those people and see life from where they're at, and just try to help them where they are, instead of judging people and labeling people and having expectations upon them of how they should treat you, of how they should behave. And once you can do that, then you can really sort of guide them or show them, you know, that there is another way to be. There's another option for them. There's another future for them. There's another present moment for them. And usually people are very receptive to that. I haven't felt much fear at all around patients. You know, I've been assaulted by a psychiatric patient, and even in that moment, I have a forgiveness. I have an understanding, because I think she was just afraid. It all just stems from fear, and that's what all of this harm that is going on in the world is, just fear of what is happening, what is going on, and where we are.
And that, you know, and that is so prevalent in just our society, in our world today, just in the general public, not even in the psychiatric population. But I think you're right. There's a level of empathy and compassion that is there in the psychiatric nursing community that you just have to understand that they didn't ask to be this way. That's just how they're wired and how they're operating at this particular moment. And I think that, at least in my opinion, what's going on when you're in the psychiatric nursing community is you're giving hope to these people again, right? They've lost hope that there's ever going to be a way of life that they're going to be happy in. God, what a place that is, right? I'm sure you've had that feeling where it's just like, I just don't have any hope that it's ever going to be any better than it is today.
Well, that is, you know, the goal as nurses. That is our goal, or that is what we should try to be, you know, to give hope. But oftentimes as nurses, I've seen, you know, professionally, we become burnt out, and then we bring that irritability and that lackluster of our own life into our professional lives, into our everyday life. And, you know, we can even ourselves become irritable or snappy with the very patients that we've dedicated our life to care for. So it's sort of a strange, you know, pattern or cycle that I've seen even nurses fall into, and they become that which they don't even want to be, which is, you know, it's, and so I feel like psychedelics can help break us from these cycles and break us from these molds of what we get stuck in.
And that's exactly right. Yeah, it's what we get stuck in. I mean, we're human beings too, right? We're subject to the human condition and how the human brain works and how we get wired for patterns of thought and get stuck in that illusion, right?
Yes.
I agree that psychedelics can take you out of that. It's almost as if it's a reset, a clearing of all of the stories that you've accumulated over time. It's like a reset where you can say, oh, yeah, that's not really me. Oh my gosh, no. Oh, it is amazing. Well, this is a good time for us to just take a break for the Nurse Mark Nugget. So hold on, everybody. We're going to be right back. Hey, guys. Welcome to this week's Nurse Mark Nugget, brought to you by the American Cannabis Nurses Association. Since 2010, the ACNA has been advancing excellence in cannabis nursing practice through advocacy, collaboration, education, research, and policy development. You can find them on the web at cannabisnurses.org. You know, in March 2019, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration approved esketamine, a drug that produces psychedelic effects to treat depression. It's the first psychedelic ever to clear that bar. And meanwhile, the FDA has granted breakthrough therapy status to MDMA, commonly known as ecstasy, as a treatment for post-traumatic stress disorder, and psilocybin as a treatment for major depression. Now, they all show promise as treatments for specific illnesses, but FDA approval means docs can prescribe them for off-label purposes, which they do all the time with medications. So you don't need to suffer from a disorder to benefit from these psychedelics. But here's the problem. Our current war on drugs and the associated Controlled Substances Act puts providers at risk for negative government intervention. These exciting, safe, and effective new treatments are being delayed due to outdated policies put in place by a corrupt, racist president. And now you know. All right, folks, we're back. Now, we were just talking about empathy and compassion, Taylor. Do you see that as being something that's really evident in sort of the psychedelic community, the people who are really seeking to utilize this as an amazing tool? Do you see that those people are the kind of people that are just naturally or you know, by necessity, more empathetic and compassionate because of their own journeys?
Absolutely. You know, I just look at my own journey, and I look at myself 10 years ago, and I was very bitter. I was very angry. I was very irritable. I didn't like people, you know. I was not the person. I never expected that I would become a nurse. But now, you know, after
and
all,
now you're in one of the hardest nursing parts of the nursing profession. I'll tell you, psychiatric is not for the faint of heart.
I definitely chose some sort of very difficult path, but the difficulty has resulted in extreme reward. And the people that I have found, these psychedelic people that I have found, these teachers, nurses, friends, and you know, everyone I've met on this journey absolutely say almost similar things. You know, I used to be this way. Now I'm much kinder. Now I'm much softer. Now I'm more understanding. I'm more patient with myself. I'm more compassionate. I'm more giving. I'm more forgiving. All of these things I would say are associated with psychedelics. And there's even research that's been conducted at the University of Alabama at Birmingham that says there's less crime rates with psychedelic users. So, which is really, really cool. Like less violence, less stealing. It's just you have a better understanding of who you are and who you are in the world, and what is your purpose in the world, what is your place in the world. And this is just over and over recurring stories, and a lot of it is anecdotal, but you know, a lot of anecdotal stories amount to something to me.
I argue that point all the time. I'm like, anecdotal evidence is just as good as hard science-based evidence in my mind, because most, especially in the psychiatric community, because how do you get diagnosed with something to begin with? You tell the practitioner how you feel, and they derive their diagnoses from what you tell them. So my God, It's all about you.
It's all about your story. Yes. And so, you don't always have to fit that diagnosis. You can overcome that diagnosis.
Oh my God, if I told you how many diagnoses I've had ADHD, I've had bipolar, I've had depression, I've had, oh, so many of the great ones, you know? Oh, luckily none of them stuck. I'm just me.
You're just you now. That's
That's
very
right.
good.
And we are amazing human beings. We really are. And why not? Why not?
Something that I like about psychedelics, or that I think, you know, gives strength to psychedelics, is the use of these adjunct therapies, or these holistic therapies, like you said, the meditation and all these other, you know, yoga, meditation, martial arts, Tai Chi, gardening, all these activities.
Physical movement, but it's really like meditation and movement. All of those things are very meditative, right?
And creative activities, artwork, and poetry, and all these things sort of come together under that psychedelic umbrella, and you can use all these things to raise yourself to a higher version of who you can be, the best version of yourself. And once you add all these things together, and these plants can help you, and you don't have to the thing about psychedelics, you don't have to take them every day. You don't have to continue taking more and more and more and more. You know, you really only need a couple of experiences, and then it's just, or you have a new worldview. You have a new idea of who you are and what you can do and what's possible.
You do. Now, we were talking about, you know, earlier before we started the recording, I was sharing how I did a ketamine meditation on Saturday night. And so there's this, you know, ketamine is being looked at as being effective for PTSD and depression. Now, it's not necessarily a psychedelic, but it sort of has those same kind of properties where it's a reset, right? So, you know, there's an organization out there that does ketamine meditations. And so it's combining those two things, and it was amazing. But as you said, you don't have to do it every day, right? I meditate every day, but you don't have to do ketamine every day. It's like the protocol for depression is that you do it 6 times in a 1-month period, I believe is what the protocol is. So you go and it's an hour long, usually, you know, you take it and it's done in an hour. And so, you know, there's these new ideas about how we can actually treat mental health issues. It's exciting as heck, isn't it?
It is. I feel like there's so much room once we open the psychedelic door, because there's so many different medicines and so many different options here that we can study and work with, and that are very helpful to many people. So it's kind of limitless possibilities that we're only just sticking our toe into as a world. And so it's quite exciting. I think there's a very bright future for nurses in psychedelic therapy. I've had many dozens of nurses come to me, say, Taylor, you've given me new hope with hearing about this new psychedelic nursing. This is something I'm interested in. I feel burnt out. I don't feel like I have a place in nursing anymore. You know, how can I help people with these new medicines? How can I experience this? How can I learn? And there's just so much opportunity that we're all building together. We're all making this happen together.
Right. Now, we're both members of the American Cannabis Nurses Association. I think that's how we connected.
Yes.
So that plant is very similar, I guess, in the community sense as the psychedelic nursing is. A lot of the nurses that are in that community also have a very personal experience with cannabis being a powerful tool that has changed their life for the better. And they're at a point in their nursing career where they're saying, I just don't buy into this sort of Western medicine, healthcare for profit model where frankly nurses are squeezed and pressured and pushed into not really providing nursing care anymore, but just being a facilitator for medication delivery, right? And so, you know, I think, would you agree that the psychedelic nursing and the cannabis nursing are sort of dual tracks in this way, in this new wave of, hey, this is how we're going to address healthcare in the world? Like, we as nurses see that this is very powerful and much more in line with how nursing should be.
I definitely consider the American Cannabis Nurses Association, sort of like a sister organization. They're very
Mhm.
similar. I want to follow a lot of the model that they've chosen to create. I really enjoy the community there. Like you said, I feel like community is of utmost importance in building
Mhm.
something great. And I really respect and appreciate cannabis medicine. I also, I don't want to hate on our current Western model too much.
No,
I do
well,
want people
because
to
it's
understand
yeah. I mean, there's
we need a
still
healthcare
very
system.
much good, positive healthcare coming out of it, right?
Yes, and some people want to stay on these pharmaceutical medications, and they say they work for them, and I think you should have access to that. And if it's not working for you though, and you want to try something else, then perhaps that we can have some different options, and it's
Mhm.
time for us to explore some psychedelic options as well.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I mean, uh, I'm not saying that Western medicine doesn't have a great deal of wonderful healing tools, right? There's a lot of good healing that takes place, and there's a lot of positive things that have come out of that sort of Western medicine tradition. I guess what I'm saying is it's great to see that we're in a place where nurses are kind of embracing this alternative methodology and area of healing, right? So I almost feel like we're merging. We're the people in the middle that are going to merge Western medicine with Eastern and traditional plant-based medicine, right?
Yes,
That's
I
how I
agree.
feel. That's my goal, is sort of bring
That
those
is my
together.
goal.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, to
So
sort
we
of
kind of
see these.
legitimize that side by bringing in more of the real evidence-based research and work together to kind of mate those two.
Yes, yes, and it makes sense to me. It's our natural state is to bring yourself into a natural state. So if you can manage your symptoms with meditation, with all these other therapy options that we talked about, as well as plants, fungi, animal medicines, if we can sort of manage or cure our symptoms that way and have to use as few pharmaceutical medications as possible, that seems ideal to me. Just because we are humans, we aren't born on all of these pills and things. So if we can become as much our natural selves as possible, if you need to use a pill, sure, but when you see people on 30 different pills every single day, you just think, wow, this is not natural. This is not
That's the business
very
of healthcare.
human.
That's the
Yes.
business of healthcare. And so my first job out of nursing school, I'm a new nurse, right? I graduated in 2014 with my associates and finished my bachelor in 2018. My first job was in long-term care. And so for me, it was absolutely just pharmaceutical medicine making a profit. These poor elderly folks were on medications that they just didn't need to be. Why is a 90-year-old person on Lipitor for their for their high cholesterol, right? What's the purpose? That's like for long-term health benefit, right? There was so many examples of why are they on this particular medication.
As much as we can simplify through diet change, lifestyle modification, as much as we can simplify the healthcare process through that way, I think that we as healthcare practitioners and providers, we should seek to do that for our patients. It's the
Sure.
right of our patients, to be as empowered as possible without 100 crutches, and to
Right.
have them walking and running on their own. That is what we should all seek for our patients, and that's what I seek for the
Absolutely.
world.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. And I think that's where this plant-based, more natural medical modality is really coming from, right? I mean, we're understanding foods are drugs. That's what we put in our body, and it's another chemical that goes in and gets converted into the different things that support life. Well, what you eat will have a profound effect on what your health is going to be over time. It really is just that easy. And yet it's a hard thing to do with the consistent marketing and media and food choices that we have presented to us. And yeah, it's hard to cut in and say, hey, let's try something different.
And that what you said about the food being a medicine, it's a very simple idea. It makes sense. We are biological machines, you know, and the chemistry of the food affects the chemistry of our body, and that
Completely.
it's very simple. It makes sense, you know.
Yeah,
But
you said it earlier when you were talking about ayahuasca and having, MAOIs, so that, in different foods that you want to avoid when you're going to do this experience. Well, it's the same with psychotropic medications that you're going to be prescribed by your psychiatrist, right? There are some that you just don't take, but you don't eat particular foods because
right.
they'll have an interaction with that medication, because you're right. We're just a biochemical machine. And we're just going to keep converting whatever we eat into some new chemical in our body. Yeah, it's amazing.
Something that I love very much about psychedelics is that they're so effective and all this research that's coming out. It seems so effective, and it's been so effective for me, but yet they're not addictive in any way, which, you know, so most medications we know that work really well for anxiety or pain or, you know, what have you, they're very addictive. They're very hard on your body. They're hard on your liver. And there's not much evidence showing that psychedelics are very hard on your body. They're actually quite good for your body. From what I've seen, you know, psilocybin can help your brain, promotes neurogenesis in your brain.
Yeah,
Promotes
as
brain
as well
growth.
as ketamine and other, in that sort of genre, they have shown to promote neurogenesis, growth of your brain. I mean, that's just an amazing thought, right?
Yes, and most of the psychedelic experience comes down to how you set up the experience. Is it a safe experience? Are you in the right setting? Is your headspace in the right space? And do you have the right facilitators? Or is
Very
it
important.
legal? You know, are you in a legal space? Are you in a space? Are you driving your car and taking psychedelics? You know, that's not going to give you a good outcome as compared to if
No.
you're in a medicinal or a ceremonial setting or something like that with the right intentions. So.
Right.
I like to teach psychedelic safety as well, because, you know, a lot of people think you can just take these psychedelic drugs and have a good time. And these aren't really recreational substances. You know, you can have fun on them, but they have a greater purpose. It's like a tool that
Right.
has a greater purpose
Well,
than
that was
abuse.
well, you were talking about it right at the outset. Your first experience with psilocybin was completely recreational in college days, right? Mine too.
Yes.
My first experience with it was that, and it was such a positive experience at the time.
But it's not always. You can end
No,
up in
it's
the
not
hospital
always. You're right.
or in the road or wherever. So it
Yeah.
can be quite scary, and I
Mhm.
don't recommend anyone do that.
I agree wholeheartedly. You said it all, creating that safe space, having a good facilitator. And I think nurses are a perfect facilitator, right? It's
I
that
agree.
empathy, that compassion, especially psychiatric nurses, because, during the experience, in many times they do them as group experiences, whether it's psilocybin or ayahuasca or whatever. They'll do a group experience. You're going to have different experiences with different people, and there are some that are going to have experiences that are going to be very cathartic and loud and and sometimes scary for other people in the room. Well, they need to create that space where it's safe for everybody. And so I think that it's cool that we're in this spot where we can be facilitators to make that happen.
Yes, and nurses have, you know, some medical knowledge and background to know when things are going wrong, when they need to intervene, you know, what is an anticipated normal reaction, when you can be hands off, and when you need to step in, and how to create that safe environment. So I think of psychedelic nurse facilitators as sort of being like a seatbelt in a car. So it kind of assures that safety net when you're in your psychedelic experience.
Yeah, that's a perfect analogy, right? You wear a seatbelt in the car, 99% of the time, it just does nothing. You're just sitting there with it on. But that one time when you need to have
Right.
that seatbelt, that nurse is there to step in and say, I got you. Going to keep you safe.
And, you know, if you're in a legal setting with a medical professional, then you can really let go and feel safe to have the full psychedelic experience. Whereas if you're say you're hiding and you're in your house and you're in an illegal setting and no one's there to watch you, then you may be liable to become much more paranoid, fall into a bad loop or a bad thought loop or a bad trip.
Right.
And just not have that full experience and not let go of much, and just have sort of it compounds into a very scary situation.
Yeah, and it can be. So creating the space, having a good facilitator, those I think are very, very important. And, you know, I see this just expanding onward and upward. So what are your plans for the future? You have this International Psychedelic Nursing Association. You're just getting ready to graduate with your nurse practitioner with a psych focus.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much that's going on. What's the goal? What's the end goal?
So I'm getting a dual degree, and I'll be a psychiatric nurse practitioner as well as a nurse educator. I'd love to work in the university setting and teach, you know, medical cannabis or psychedelic medicine or psychiatric medicine, as well as, you know, indigenous medicines and things like that. All of my interest in I'd also am working on what's called Hope Network Health. So we're taking psychedelic medicine, psilocybin, and cannabis medicine in Jamaica. So our first trip is May 10th through the 16th, 2021. We still have a few participant spaces left. And if people are interested in receiving psychedelic medicine, I'll be there facilitating. I also have a couple more nurses who will be there working with us, and a cultivator. So we'll have education sessions on cultivation, medicine cultivation, as well as we'll have yoga, all sorts of other educational classes. That's our Jamaican Basics course, May 10th through the 16th. And if you want to follow me on Hope Network Health, then we're on Facebook, Instagram, and hopenetworkhealth.com.
Awesome. That sounds exciting.
I'm very excited, yes.
Oh my gosh, that's going to be an amazing moment in time. Yeah, so folks, if you want to have a good curated, safe experience, that would be an opportunity that you may not want to miss, the 10th through the 16th. So I'm really excited that you're out in the space actually going to educate people on this, because you are super knowledgeable in this, and I can tell that you're passionate about it, because here you are, you're doing all of these things. Where do you see the association going?
You know, I feel like I want to sort of take over the whole world in a sort of way. You know, we're getting more and more interest from more and more countries. So yes. I seek to, you know, nurses from every country together, so we can all be on the same page in healthcare around the world. So we can all work together and create best practices, use research from all these different countries that are coming out, and just work together as one world, so that we can all have great medicine and improve access to medicine, improve cost of medicine, and improve training for nurses, education to the public on these medicines, so that we can all move forward and really just improve medicine around the world. So that's sort of the big goal for me. And of course, this will take years and years, my lifetime to develop, but that's what I'm looking forward to. And I'm very excited about it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm excited too. I'm right with you. We have
many nurses on board with us who are just as excited and ready to go to work and just do everything they can to move this forward, because of how it's helped them and how they know it can help other people.
Right. Whether it's in the cannabis or the psychedelic space, they've had personal experience where it has changed their lives for the better. And, you know, it makes sense. You mentioned it earlier about nurse burnout. One of the things that I think is just an absolute shame is that the healthcare, first responders, and military communities, the ones who need to have access to the cannabis and psychedelic areas in medicine to really heal, are the ones who are prohibited from having it. Absolutely prohibited. And that needs to change. That's one thing that I'm passionate about, and that I will work diligently to change. Is every one of those three specific vocations need to have access to this type of medicine, because they're the ones, frankly, nurses, right? First responders, law enforcement, fire, all of those people, military, they're the ones who are going to be more prone to have experiences that will cause PTSD. Absolutely, hands down. So here we are. All right, Taylor, any last words that you'd like to share with the world? Because I'm loving everything that you're doing, and I'm supporting it any way I can.
Well, thank you very much. Really, no last words. Just please, everyone, if you're interested in this movement, you can share, like, donate, follow, share, spread the news, join psychedelicnurses.org.
Psychedelicnurses.org. I'll have all of your information up on the show notes, and I always love to do a Facebook Live on the same day that we launch the podcast. So I'll try to coordinate with you. We'll do a Facebook Live Q&A session like at 7:00 at night, and you know, people stop in. It's really cool. It's a fun thing to do afterwards because people are really going to love this episode of the podcast. Good. Because, man, you are just a rock star in this space. And I am so happy and blessed to count you as one of my friends and colleagues, Taylor. So,
well, thank you.
Thanks for being a guest.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being a guest on the Nurse Mark podcast. And yeah, have a great day, everybody. Hey, guys, thanks for listening into this week's episode of the Nurse Mark podcast with my guest, Taylor Hayes. I hope you really get a sense about how exciting it is for psychedelics, especially in mental health care, about how these amazing plants and animal-based medicine are really going to change how we treat mental illness. There's so much we need to learn, and Taylor is on the forefront of helping make that happen. So thanks again for listening in. And remember, it's always about health, happiness, cannabis.